Listen to me for 10 seconds. If you get January right, really right, you don't spend the rest of the year running, begging, chasing, or proving. January decides the tone. January tells the truth. January either trains you to trust yourself or teaches you to doubt yourself for 11 long months. Here's what nobody tells you. January isn't about motivation. Motivation is loud, dramatic, and unreliable. January is about integrity. It's about the quiet agreement you make with yourself when nobody is clapping. It's about waking up and doing the thing you said you'd do, even when it's uncomfortable, boring, or scary. Especially then. Most people treat January like a performance, new plans, new promises, new identities they can't sustain. And when February comes, they collapse under the weight of expectations they never built the emotional strength to carry. But winning January isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters and doing it consistently enough that your nervous system starts to believe you again. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a repeatable truth. One promise you keep daily. One boundary you stop negotiating. One honest look in the mirror where you say, "This year, I will not abandon myself." January is the month where self-respect is built in private, where courage shows up without an audience, where you stop waiting for confidence and start acting with fear in the room, because confidence isn't the starting line, it's the reward. Win January by choosing alignment over excitement, discipline over drama, integrity over intensity. Do that, and the year doesn't need to be chased. It follows. Winning January means facing a truth most people avoid. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your habits. And habits aren't built by hype. They're built by repetition, patience, and the willingness to feel uncomfortable without quitting on yourself. Here's the hard part. January exposes your emotional patterns. The way you respond to resistance. The way you talk to yourself when it's hard. The way you reach for distraction instead of discipline. This month doesn't ask, what do you want? It asks, who are you when no one is watching? If you keep breaking promises to yourself in January, your brain learns a dangerous lesson. Your word doesn't mean much. And that erodes trust from the inside out. But every small promise you keep, waking up when you said you would, stopping when you said you'd stop, choosing rest instead of burnout, you rebuild self-trust. And self-trust is everything. This is why January matters so much, because it trains your nervous system. It teaches your body whether it's safe to believe in you. And when your body trusts you, action becomes easier. Not effortless, but possible. You don't need to transform your entire life this month. That's a lie sold by people who profit from your burnout. You need to stabilize. Choose boring consistency over emotional highs. Choose less, done well. Choose depth over speed. Most people quit in January because they confuse discomfort with danger, but growth is uncomfortable by design. If it feels shaky, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It means you're learning how to stand in a new way. Win January by staying when it gets dull, by showing up when it's quiet, by doing the work that doesn't get applause. Because the year doesn't reward intensity, it rewards endurance. January asks a brutal question most people avoid all year. What are you running from? Because when the noise dies down, the excuses disappear and the calendar resets, there's nowhere left to hide. And that's not punishment, that's an invitation. You see, chasing the year usually means you're avoiding something inside yourself. Old fear, old shame, old stories about not being enough, not being ready, not being worthy yet. January doesn't let you outrun those stories. It brings them to the surface and says, deal with this now, or drag it with you all year. This is where courage actually lives, not in big public wins, but in private honesty, in admitting what drains you, in naming what no longer fits, in letting go of identities you've outgrown, even when they once kept you safe. Growth requires grief. And January is the month where that grief shows up quietly. Most people overload their schedules in January to avoid feeling more goals, more tasks, more noise. But if you never slow down enough to feel, you never heal. And unhealed patterns don't disappear, they repeat louder, harder, more painful. Winning January means choosing emotional clarity over emotional comfort. It means sitting with the discomfort long enough to learn from it instead of numbing it. It means asking yourself, what am I afraid to stop doing? And what am I scared to begin? You don't need to fix everything this month. You need to tell yourself the truth, because clarity is power. And once you see clearly, you stop wasting energy chasing the wrong things. January isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before fear took the wheel. Do that, and the year doesn't feel heavy. It feels intentional. January teaches you something ruthless and freeing at the same time. Your energy is your responsibility, not your past. Not other people. Not the year you wish you had. What you protect in January is what grows all year. Most people enter the year leaking energy everywhere, over-explaining, over-committing, over-giving, saying yes when their body is screaming no. And then they wonder why they're exhausted by March. January is where you stop that pattern or you reinforce it. Winning January means drawing boundaries before burnout forces them on you. It means choosing what deserves your attention and letting the rest be misunderstood. Because here's the truth, being clear will cost you approval, and being unclear will cost you your peace. January asks you which price you're willing to pay. Boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. They're saying, this is where I end and you begin. They're an act of self-respect, not selfishness. And when you practice them early in the year, you don't spend the next 11 months resentful and depleted. This month is where you decide what gets access to you. Your time, your focus, your emotional labor. If everything has access, nothing has value. January is the training ground for intentional living. You don't need to announce your boundaries. You need to live them calmly, repeatedly, without guilt. The people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will resist when you find your voice. Let them. Discomfort is part of growth. When you protect your energy in January, you create momentum that doesn't rely on adrenaline. You stop chasing productivity and start embodying purpose. And when your energy is aligned, effort feels lighter. Even when the work is hard, January is where your relationship with failure gets exposed, not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind, the missed day, the imperfect effort, the moment you didn't show up how you planned. And what you do next decides the year. Most people treat January mistakes like proof they're not cut out for change. They miss once, and the shame spiral begins. See? I always quit. I never follow through. That voice isn't truth. It's an old survival strategy trying to keep you small and safe. Winning January means refusing to let shame lead. Shame says hide. Courage says stay. And staying, especially after a slip, is how resilience is built. Not by perfection, but by repair. Here's the reframe. Consistency isn't never failing. Consistency is how quickly you return to yourself. How fast you choose alignment again. One bad day doesn't break momentum. Abandonment does. January gives you dozens of chances to practice self-trust in real time. To say, I messed up and I'm still committed. That's emotional maturity. That's leadership starting with yourself. You don't need harsher rules. You need more compassion paired with accountability. Compassion without accountability keeps you stuck. Accountability without compassion breaks you. January is where you learn to hold both. Every time you restart instead of quit, your nervous system learns a new story. I am safe to try. I am allowed to be human. I can recover. And that story changes how you approach the rest of the year. Win January by normalizing the reset, by choosing progress over punishment, by staying in the work even when it's messy, because the people who win the year aren't flawless, they're faithful to the process. January strips away the fantasy of transformation and replaces it with something far more powerful, identity. This month isn't asking what you want to achieve. It's asking who you're willing to become on ordinary days. Most people set goals that don't match their self-image. They want calm but live in chaos. They want confidence but avoid hard conversations. They want change without changing how they see themselves. And January exposes that gap immediately. Winning January means shifting from outcome thinking to identity thinking. Instead of asking, did I win today? You ask, Did I act like the person I respect today? Because when your actions align with your values, results eventually follow, quietly, steadily, inevitably. Identity is built through evidence, small, repeated actions that say, this is who I am now. You don't wait to feel disciplined. You practice discipline until it feels familiar. You don't wait to feel brave. You take one brave step and let the evidence stack. January is where you stop negotiating with the version of yourself that wants comfort over growth. Not with cruelty, but with clarity. You acknowledge the fear. You thank it for trying to protect you, and then you move forward anyway. This is not about becoming someone unrecognizable. It's about becoming congruent, letting your inner values and outer actions finally match. That alignment creates peace you don't have to chase. When you win January at the identity level, the rest of the year stops feeling like a battle. Decisions get simpler. Boundaries get stronger. Momentum becomes natural. You don't need a breakthrough. You need follow through. And January is where follow through becomes your new normal. January teaches you how to sit with discomfort without needing to escape it. And that skill, right there, is what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. Most people chase relief. Relief from uncertainty, relief from fear, relief from feeling behind. So they rush, they overplan, they overconsume advice, they stay busy so they don't have to be present. But January doesn't reward urgency, it rewards tolerance. Winning January means learning to stay grounded when things feel unfinished, when results aren't visible yet, when effort hasn't been validated. This is where patience becomes an act of courage, because it's easier to quit than to wait with intention. Growth lives in the gap between effort and outcome, and January is full of gaps. The gym doesn't show results yet. The discipline doesn't feel natural yet. The confidence hasn't caught up yet. But if you leave the gap too early, you never see what you were becoming. Here's the truth. Discomfort isn't a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're expanding. Your nervous system is adjusting to a new normal. And adjustment feels shaky before it feels strong. January asks you to slow your reactions, to respond instead of react, to breathe instead of bolt, to trust that consistency will compound even when it's invisible. When you learn to tolerate discomfort in January, the rest of the year stops scaring you. Challenges feel familiar. Resistance feels manageable. You stop chasing certainty and start embodying stability. You don't win January by feeling good. You win it by staying steady, and steadiness, quiet, unglamorous, powerful, becomes the foundation of everything that follows. January reveals how deeply you trust yourself under pressure, not when things are easy, but when no one is reminding you, pushing you, or watching you. This is the month where external validation fades and internal leadership takes over. Most people rely on urgency to move them forward. Deadlines, fear, other people's expectations, but urgency burns out fast. January asks you to build self-direction, to choose action without applause, to lead yourself when no one is clapping. Winning January means becoming your own witness, noticing your effort, acknowledging your growth, letting enough be defined by integrity, not comparison. Because comparison will make you feel behind even when you're doing meaningful work. This is also the month to stop rehearsing failure. So many people spend January bracing for disappointment instead of allowing possibility. They half commit to protect themselves from regret. But half commitment guarantees one thing: stagnation. Courage in January looks quiet. It looks like showing up again without certainty. It looks like choosing belief before proof. And belief doesn't mean blind optimism. It means deciding to act in alignment even while doubt is present. When you lead yourself well in January, you stop outsourcing your confidence. You don't need the year to validate you. You become anchored from the inside. And that kind of stability can't be shaken by slow progress or outside noise. You don't need to feel ready. Readiness is built through action. January is the training ground where trust replaces pressure. Win this month by becoming reliable to yourself. Because once you trust yourself, you stop chasing motivation and start moving with intention. January shows you something powerful. Momentum doesn't come from speed. It comes from alignment. When your actions, values, and energy move in the same direction, life stops feeling like resistance. Most people try to force the year, push harder, move faster, do more. But force creates friction, and friction creates fatigue. January invites you to choose alignment instead of hustle. Winning January means simplifying, cutting the noise, letting go of goals that impress others but exhaust you, choosing the few things that actually matter and doing them with presence. Because clarity creates momentum faster than chaos ever will. This is also the month to stop arguing with reality. If something drains you every time, listen. If something lights you up consistently, pay attention. Your body keeps the score long before your mind catches up. When you're aligned, effort still exists, but it doesn't feel like self-betrayal. It feels honest, sustainable, grounded. And that's how momentum compounds quietly across months. January is where you stop asking, how do I do more, and start asking, what do I need to stop overpromising? Stop overthinking. Stop trying to prove your worth through exhaustion. The people who don't chase the year aren't luckier, they're clearer. They made decisions early. They chose direction over distraction. And they trusted that steady progress beats frantic motion. If January feels calm instead of chaotic, you're doing it right. Calm is not laziness, it's alignment in action. If you win January, you don't spend the rest of the year chasing. You spend it becoming. Because January isn't about pressure, it's about proof. Proof that you can stay. Proof that you can choose yourself. Proof that you can act with integrity even when no one is watching. This month teaches the year how to treat you. It shows life what you tolerate, what you protect, and what you're willing to commit to when the excitement fades. And once that lesson is learned, the year responds differently. You stop begging for motivation because you've built discipline. You stop searching for confidence because you've practiced courage. You stop chasing clarity because you've chosen alignment. The panic disappears, not because life is easier, but because you are steadier. Winning January doesn't mean perfection, it means presence. It means you showed up more often than you disappeared. You told yourself the truth. You honored your energy. You repaired instead of quit. And those choices compound quietly, powerfully. By the time the year unfolds, you're not scrambling to catch up. You're already rooted, already moving, already ahead, not in comparison, but in commitment. So here's the ending truth. When you win January, the year doesn't need to be forced. It doesn't need to be chased. It meets you where you stand, strong, aligned, and unshakable. That's how you carry a year, not by running after it, but by becoming the kind of person it follows.